Your brain sends neural signals, and their electrical signals go from one brain cell, one neuron to another. And when those signals are transmitted, you can record the electrical activity. You can record it very precisely with electrodes that you implant in the brain, like these brain-computer interfaces, or you can get sort of an aggregate of the brain signals by taking a surface recording. And what that does normally is those electrical signals, for example, from your motor cortex, will travel down to your spinal cord and send that signal to a motor neuron in your spinal cord, and that flexes your muscle. Your brain has 100 billion of these neurons all talking to each other and firing, and you have developed this phenomenally complex nervous system and evolved it to work. But what we have to do when you're just getting little signals, just like a little spike from these neurons, is the computer has to interpret what that means. So you have to train the computer to say, when I am moving my left foot or thinking about moving my left foot, this is what those signals look like. What a spike is, and what electrophysiologists and neuroscientists call spikes, are when a neuron fires. So your neurons in your brain are receiving signals from other cells all the time, and if they get a strong enough signal, they send an action potential, which we call a spike, and that sends a signal down a long wire to a different neuron. And so that's an electrical signal that you can measure. So these devices are just hearing that electrical signal, that one big spike. And what you can do then, that's an electrical signal that's almost like if you're pushing a button on your computer. Every time you heard a beep, if you pushed a button on your computer, you could cause your computer to do something. So the part from the signal being interpreted by the brain-computer interface and how it influences something outside of your body is a lot like a Wi-Fi signal. So I think Neuralink says they have no wires, so I assume it's a wireless signal. So they'll take those electrical signals, the computer will decode them and say, this person is thinking about moving the mouse to the right. That electrical signal then goes, it's just like putting a robot and moving your mouse to the right. So it's just an electrical impulse, the way we would program a computer or a robot to do anything. The complex bit is interpreting the brain signal so that you can tell that robot or that machine what to do. There was a fascinating case published last year in Switzerland, a man who was completely paralyzed and had one of these early brain-computer interfaces experimentally implanted in his brain, recording from the part of the brain that controls movement. And then a very advanced machine learning, so artificial intelligence algorithm, interpreted those signals and sent them directly to his spinal cord below where the injury was so he could walk. So this is how amazing neuroscience is, that even only in trials so far, but you can actually decode what the brain is saying now and use that to generate movement. This is a similar principle to Neuralink, these ideas that you can help people speak. I've seen several studies, some of which use non-invasive methods like scalp electrodes to record brain activity, or functional MRI, so a brain scan essentially. And that's a little bit less precise than sticking an electrode directly into your brain and recording a signal. But what it is allowing people to do in collaboration with these hugely powerful computer systems is for people to think about words and those to be interpreted by the computer. And then, you could use that to type or to generate speech. So this is research that's coming along, and it's fascinating. It's not, in the studies I've read, perfect by any means. So one of the studies I read could only accurately interpret 50% of the words someone was thinking. So it's not perfect yet, but it's part of the direction the field is going. So just this idea that understanding the brain and neuroscience and bringing that together with artificial intelligence and computers is really going to, I think, start making a difference in people's lives, both, as you say, in moving if you've had an injury, and in speaking if you can't speak for some reason, like a stroke or things like that. I have heard that they're recruiting people who have ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or some types of paralysis. So I'm guessing that in the future they won't just be using the Neuralink to tell your phone what to do or to move a cursor on a computer screen or play a game, but to actually send the signals to a robot or send the signals to a prosthetic limb, for example, or even if they follow what this group in Switzerland did, you could directly stimulate the spinal cord if that's intact. Clinicians who work in Parkinson's disease have been able to treat Parkinson's symptoms by directly stimulating the brain, and that stops some of the motor symptoms. So as you know, in Parkinson's, you have a tremor sometimes, trouble initiating movement, and by directly stimulating part of the brain with electrodes that are quite similar to the brain-computer interfaces, you can alleviate some of the symptoms.